Hello YouTube, I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and on this channel we try to answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney for free. I have a question here from YouTube user David Almendarez, who asks us, Vince, why do some people say government entities are immune from lawsuits? Okay, real quick, I'm going to give a caveat first, and then I'm going to give a general answer. There are some claims in some situations that government entities are potentially immune from. Odds are you are not dealing with such a situation. That caveat probably does not deal with your situation, statistically speaking. It could, so check with local counsel. The broader answer, the simpler answer is, and I'll read the question one more time, why do some people, so I assume you mean attorneys, why do some attorneys say government entities are immune from lawsuits? Those attorneys are lazy. Here's the reality. Government entities at various levels of the government are not playing with their money. It's not a private business. No one's going to be fired for losing a lawsuit. There's no one with a bank account saying, oh no, I'm going to lose my money in this lawsuit. So generally speaking, they are less eager to settle claims, and so they will litigate more. This is more work for the law firm. This raises the likelihood of a trial exponentially. Now, many firms aren't super thrilled about doing trial work. Some are. Certainly our firm is. But generally speaking, a lot of firms are like, well, odds are I'm going to have to work a lot harder on that case against a government entity. They're going to make decisions that don't make any sense because it's not their money. They're playing with taxpayer money. They don't really care what happens. They're not going to be held accountable because they're government employees. So they just don't care. And there's a lot more work. There's a lot more risk for the firm. It doesn't mean that the government entity is necessarily immune. Again, depending on the claim, there's some issues, qualified immunity, absolute immunity. There's some stuff that goes on that does convey immunity that we're not going to get into here. And you need the specifics of your situation will determine if such things apply to you. But if you're talking about employment litigation, they probably don't. Real loose answer, they probably don't. Check it with local counsel. What's really, really going on is more work, more risk for the firm. They don't want to take it. That's a bummer. That sucks. You can still find firms that will. Generally, those tend to be the better firms. Bummer. The better firms are often the more expensive firms, right? Firms that maintain multiple trial teams. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Trial attorneys, expensive. Expensive to keep around. Obnoxious. Egotistical. You got to put up with them. You got to fund them. You got to chase them around. Listen, it's just the reality of the industry. Trial teams are burdensome and expensive. They're also really important. If you're not willing to try any case you take, you will get less for your caseload in settlement, right? You maximize settlement value by every defense attorney in all the land knowing, oh God, this firm will try anything they take. They only take things they're willing to take to trial. So you can't lowball them on the settlement offer because they'll just try the case. Every time we find out the hard way, this is what this firm does, right? And if that's the reputation your firm has, then, so be it. That's amazing. You're going to do better overall, but that is an expensive reputation to fund, right? That's a high class you want that reputation. And, if a firm can afford it, they probably will because it's incredibly beneficial. But the upshot is the firms that have multiple trial teams spend lots and lots and lots of money, hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars on those trial teams. And their fee structure probably reflects that, right? So sometimes when you're suing government entities with employment lawsuits, you do end up paying more. And that is the most apparent and prevalent with federal employees because the federal government is has created a specialized process which essentially shields them from like workplace discrimination, workplace sexual harassment suits. Not a perfect shield. You can certainly succeed, and many firms do, many litigants do. There's a pro se litigant who brought in she has a really great, amazing YouTube channel, Flight Employment Discrimination. She brought in an attorney at the end, but like did most of the work herself and did an amazing job. So like it's not a perfect shield. Like the federal system that's developed for federal employees to bring workplace discrimination, workplace sexual harassment claims is meant to frustrate federal employees and create incredible amounts of extra work and extra risk for attorneys taking those cases. And the upshot of that is not that those cases can't be won. It's that attorneys charge large upfront retainers for those employees to offset all the extra work that's going to go into that case. Sometimes, not all. You can find pure contingency firms. They're out there. Certainly, check your local options. But many firms will charge large upfront sums for federal employees, and that can make it difficult to obtain representation, which can make it feel like the federal government is immune from lawsuits. They're not. It's just that the process is more expensive and more burdensome, so the firms become more expensive and more burdensome, and then fewer people bring their claims. There is a quieting effect on litigation, where fewer and fewer of those claims are brought forward because fewer and fewer of the firms are willing to take it, and the firms that do are charging more and more and more, and so the federal government's like, we get sued 25% as much as anybody else. I don't know what the real number is, but I would imagine that they get cases going forward against the federal government at a much lower rate than you get claims brought against private employers, because claims against private employers are much easier to bring. There's no special apparatus. There's no special system. Really short statute of limitations, all these things that apply to federal employees that are better for private employees, because the federal government was like, well, we're the ones making the law, so we're going to make the law that we're going to be subject to. It's going to be good for us, which is just, how things go in the world when the lawmakers are also the people being held accountable by the laws. Those laws are going to probably be fairly favorable to the lawmakers, right? David Almandars, I hope this answers your question. It is, generally speaking, all caveats aside, do pay attention to the caveats, check with local counsel for your specific situation. Generally, simply, it is lazy attorneys choosing to avoid extra work, extra risk on cases. And that's why you will have this notion that certain government entities can be immune from employment litigation. It is generally not true. It is generally a misunderstanding driven by firms uncomfortable with additional work and additional risk and lower settlement prospects in terms of the likelihood of a settlement. Because, again, the government's not playing with their money. They're playing with your money. If the government pays out a settlement or a verdict, it's just taxpayer money. It's not the government's money. The government doesn't have any money. All the money is the taxpayer money. If the government wants more money, it just takes more of your money in taxes, right? Or it prints more. It doesn't really care. So that, you get weird decision-making processes that take place at the settlement table where they just don't care. Hey, no one's going to be held accountable, and we don't actually care what you win. So, that's tough, because you're like, well, I'll take you to trial. And they're like, yeah, we know. See you there. We're not actually going to go. We're just going to send an attorney that we pay with your money because we don't care about this. We don't care what you win either. And none of us are going to get fired because we're government employees. That's a bummer. Doesn't mean you can't win a big verdict at trial, and you're still going to take that fight and do that, certainly, if you can. But it's a tough mediation to go to and just be like, nobody cares. Oh, yeah. We're the government. Yeah. It's a hassle. If this was helpful, like, subscribe, comment down below, share the channel so it can grow. That is the only way anyone sees this. It helps us to help more people just like you. So consider. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.